everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, or at least that's what a lot of the rest of Christianity calls them. And I was just thinking about this today for some reason. It hasn't really come up yet on the channel. We've discussed everything from like the 144,000 to the seals to New Jerusalem and the four beasts before the throne of God, the 24 elders, and so on and so on and so forth. We're talking a lot about Revelation on this channel. We have so far, but we haven't hit up this topic. And this one kind of, it bothers me because I feel like I've met many members of the church that, that like to get into Second Coming stuff, but they really don't know what this is at all. And we do have interpretations of it. And it's not really a mystery. In fact, it's not even something that's going to happen. It's already happened. And I'm about to show you what I'm talking about using church sources, specifically scriptures primarily. And then after that, student manuals. And then after that, an Ensign article. You guys, we already have the answers to virtually anything that you're wanting to interpret. There's an answer for it, and you go to church sources and you find it. So here you have the four horsemen and their horses and how they're typically depicted, which it always looks horrible to me. I'm not a big fan of this kind of like art. Whenever like people depict just kind of horrible or gruesome scenes from the Bible, even though their intent might be good, it doesn't really bring a very good spirit when you look at it. Yeah, here's one that's a little bit better. Obviously, this is from the I don't know exactly when, but a long time ago. Looks like medieval art. And here you have the four beasts right here, right? The ones that we've talked about before with the eyes in the front and the back, and we've done a video about them. And we saw what Joseph Smith has said about them, which is the correct interpretation, obviously. Okay, so let's read just the verses that have to do with the four horses, and then let's look at how other Christians view this. Because remember, they do not have the same understanding that we do of what a seal is in the book of Revelation, and the seals have to do with these four horses. And then let's look what we believe in what modern day prophets and apostles and general authorities have said about this topic. Okay, so we're in chapter 6. Okay. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of four beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Now, before I go on, you should be, if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you should have an understanding that the seals, they have to do with 1,000-year periods, right? So the first seal has to do with the first 1,000 years of the Earth's temporal existence. The second seal has to do with the next 1,000 years, and so on and so forth. And then there's like this big argument right now, are we in the sixth seal or in the seventh seal? Just whatever. Don't argue with me about that, or please don't argue in the comments about it. You're entitled to your opinion. I tend to think that we're in the seventh seal just because it seems pretty straightforward, but I'm not opposed to like if it turns out that we are in the sixth seal, so just whatever. It's not that big of a deal, as much of a big a deal as people make it out to be. So anyway, so the black horse, that's in the third seal, so the third 1,000 years. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed him, and power was given unto him over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with beasts of the earth. Okay, so it seems kind of enigmatic, right? You're looking at these, and you're already, like, many are already trying to be like, oh, I think that this represents this person, and this represents this country, and da 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 da, right? When you go to websites from other churches, this is what you'll find. I have 3 examples of what you'll find. This is from Life, Hope, and Truth, and I'm not trying to badmouth these different groups or churches. They're I know that they're doing the best that they can, but this is their view on the 4 horsemen. They say on their website, the first 4 seals are also the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. These horsemen represent events that have been ongoing since the prophecy was given, and that they will intensify in the end times before the climactic return of Jesus Christ. Okay, so let's pretend that you're a Latter-day Saint, you're trying to understand these things, and instead of first going to the church website, instead of first looking to general authorities to see if they may have already talked about this, instead of going to Joseph Smith and seeing if he has said anything about this, some members, and I hate to say it like this, but some members just go immediately, well, the church doesn't really talk a whole lot about this, and so they go to sites like this, right? Different groups for whatever reason. So according to this group here, these are 4 horsemen that they've been ongoing since the time of John, and then will continue until Christ comes with more intensity as we get closer. This is their interpretation. Okay, if we look at Haggai Ministries, there's an article here, the 4 horses of the apocalypse. Let's see what they think about it. The white rider on the rider on the white horse is riding through America. Okay, the red horse brings death, in which 1/4 of Earth will be slaughtered, and global nuclear war. Okay, the third horse is the black horse of famine, which brings with it a global food shortage. And then, of course, he's talking about the Antichrist, because that's a very big evangelical concept, like a singular Antichrist, rather than how we think of Antichrist as just anybody that is against Christ. Anyway, the 4th horse is the pale horse of death. The Greek word for this horse is chloros, which means green. The CIA Fact Book 1999 states that green is the traditional color of Islam. Okay, and I assume that he's talking about Iran down here, war in the Middle East. Okay, so this person has very, very specific interpretations of what these horses mean. So the Haggai Ministries are different from Life, Hope, and Truth. Now we have BibleStudyTools.com, the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse Plus. Okay, so this one, let's see what their interpretation is. Main idea: though judgment will come on all the earth through deception, war, famine, and death, Christ is sovereign over every step and is working through the trials. 1. Be aware of God's weapon of deception, the white horse. Be aware of God's weapon of war, the red horse. Be aware of God's weapon of famine, the black horse. Be aware of God's weapon of death, the pale horse. So here you have yet another interpretation, and down here in this paragraph, the four horsemen introduce us to the first of God's three series of judgments in Revelation. The seal judgments of chapter 6, the trumpet judgments in chapter 8 and 9, and the bowl judgments in chapters 15 and 16. I believe, and this is where problems come in, I believe there is a telescopic relationship to the judgments, which each successive series comes out of the last of the former. In other words, the seventh seal is the seven trumpets, and the seventh trumpet is the seven, I guess that's bowls, 7 bowls. This would indicate an increase both in rapidity and intensity as the judgments unfold. It'll be a time of great sorrow and suffering. So here you have these 3 different groups, churches, denominations, I'm not exactly sure, ministries, and all 3 of them have wildly different interpretations of the four horsemen, although they do in their articles kind of state it very matter-of-factly. Oh, this is this and this is this. And that's another pattern that I see, unfortunately, a lot of Latter-day Saints do as well. Like in the comments section, there's always people that'll just come out and be like, no, the red horseman, that means, nuclear war. Or, no, that's not going to happen because, or, no, they'll just like make blanket statements like it's just a matter of fact without giving a source or a reason why they believe that. Anyway, I'm not meaning to disparage these 3 groups, but it's just like, how do you come to that interpretation? Like, how do you, and of course there is a whole lot more here. So to be fair, I'm sure they kind of like get into their rationale more. Okay. So anyway, now let's move over to what's published in LDS literature. We're going to look at a few church manuals for institute and seminary, and then we're going to see what this is an article by Gerald N. Lund. He was a 70, and actually I want to do a video just about this article because it looks like it's really good. It covers a lot of good stuff, but this is an article called Seeing the Book of Revelation as a Book of Revelation. Okay, so this is what we're going to look at. Okay. So, like I stated before, we already have the understanding from Doctrine and Covenants, section 77, that the seals represent 1,000-year periods. Again, that's something that other Christian churches would have no concept of. That's unique to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So that's why, if you're not already familiar with our doctrine, in our scriptures. I mean, this is in the scriptures themselves. This is in the Doctrine and Covenants. So if you're not familiar with our scriptures, then you leave yourself open to error, to faulty interpretations. If you're trying to figure out something in the scriptures, see if other scriptures talk about it. See if prophets, apostles talk about it. Look for general conference talks. Look for Ensign articles. There's a lot of sources. Do searches on the church website. It could bring something up from a church manual. It could bring something up from the Bible study aids that we have. Go to the Bible dictionary. There's so many things that you can look at. Just if you remember this church, make sure that you understand what we think first, okay? And then you can go and see what others think and take it under consideration. But I wouldn't accept it necessarily as your personal doctrine. Okay, so over here we have a table. On this side, the seal and the approximate dates, and then on this side, possible interpretations. And we're just going to go one by one. Okay, first seal, and then over here, there's like a similar table, but it has some different information. Here's yet another one. So we have these 3. So this manual, this is New Testament Student Manual for Institute. This one right here is New Testament Study Guide for Home Study Seminary Students for seminary. And then we have this one. This is Seminaries and Institutes New Testament Teacher Resource Manual. Okay, so these are put out by the church. First seal, about 4,000 to 3,000 BC. Okay, white horse equals victory, bow equals warfare, crown equals conqueror. Commenting on Revelation 6, verses 1 through 2, Elder Bruce R. McConkie said, quote, "The most transcendent happenings referred to in these verses involved Enoch and his ministry. And it is interesting to note that what John saw was not the establishment of Zion and its removal to heavenly spheres, but the unparalleled wars in which Enoch, as a general over the armies of the saints, went forth conquering and to conquer." And we've actually kind of touched on that because, like, we've read some stuff about Enoch and wars that were going on. It talks about how he was involved in wars, and that is something also that other Christian churches do not have. Okay, that's it. I'm pretty sure that this is found in. I think it's in the appendix, or no, it might be in. Well, it says right here, Moses. Chapter 7, 13 through 18. And this talks about that. Let me just read the first verse. "And so great was the faith of Enoch that he led the people of God, and their enemies came to battle against them. And he spake the word of the Lord, and the earth trembled, and the mountains..." Okay, so you get the idea. It's talking about Enoch's wars. So here we have two completely unique to our church concepts. The concept of Enoch being a general or a commander over an army. That's something that other Christian churches don't have because they don't have the Book of Moses. And then our interpretation of the seals, which comes from Doctrine and Covenants for section 77. Okay, so let's move on to this manual. Okay, yeah, white horse victory, bow warfare, crown conqueror. Elder Bruce R. McConkie of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles suggested that Revelation 6, 1 through 2 describes Enoch's day, and the rider is Enoch. And then let's look at this. Let's see. No, that's just exactly the same. Okay, let's go down to the second seal, about 3,000 to 2,000 BC. Red horse equals bloodshed, sword equals war and destruction. As recorded in the scriptures, widespread wickedness and violence characterized this time period, which included the Great Flood during the days of Noah. The rider of the red horse had power to, quote, "take peace from the earth," in that they should kill one another. Who rode the red horse of war and bloodshed and a sword during the second seal? Perhaps it was the devil himself, for surely that was the great day of his power, a day of such gross wickedness that every living soul, save 8 only, was found worthy of death by drowning. Or, if it was not Lucifer, perhaps it was a man of blood or a person representing many murdering warriors, of whom we have no record. Suffice it to say that the era from 3000 BC to 2000 BC was one of war and destruction. That comes from Bruce R. McConkie, Doctrinal New Testament Commentary. All right, let's see what it says in this manual. Red horse equals bloodshed, sword equals war and destruction. Elder McConkie suggests that Revelation 6, 3 through 4 describes Noah's day when wickedness covered the earth. The rider of the red horse could be the devil himself, or perhaps a person representing many murdering warriors. Here, Elder McConkie suggested that this describes Noah's day when wickedness covered the earth. Okay, let's move on to the third seal. This is now the black horse. This is about 2000 to 1000 BC. Black horse equals famine. Balances equal high prices for food. A measure of wheat could feed an adult for a day and cost a penny under these famine conditions. Quote-unquote penny is translated from the Greek word denarian, which referred to a Roman coin that some estimate was worth the typical daily wage of a laborer. A person could purchase only enough food to live on a whole day's wages, indicating extreme famine prices. In contrast, barley was less expensive and was thus eaten by the poor. As recorded in the scriptures, famines are characteristic of this time period. Okay. Let's see what it says over here. Elder McConkie suggested that Revelation 6, 5-6 describes Abraham's day when many died of starvation. A person could purchase only enough food to live on with a whole day's wages, indicating extreme famine prices. And, remember what we know. Of course, other Christians know this, but they wouldn't associate it with this time period. We know the story of Abraham, Isaac, and especially Jacob. They had to leave the promised land because of famine and go down to Egypt. So it fits really nicely. That's how I view it. It fits really nicely. Anyway, we've talked about that before. Basically, the whole story, the journey of the Israelite people, starting with Abraham, but then Israel and his sons themselves, leaving the promised land, having to come down to Egypt as though coming to earth, symbolically coming to earth, to be tested, finding ourselves in bondage, the bondage of sin, being freed and being saved by the Savior, which Moses was a type, or he was he was like a metaphor of the Savior, going through the Red Sea, being baptized, wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, but following the Savior, which was hard, but they did it. And then after the previous generation had died off, like in other words, killing off all the remnants within yourself that belong to the world, getting rid of that, then returning back into the promised land that was promised to you if you're righteous, right? So it makes sense that the famine, which I really do think that when Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were there, and then there was the famine, it's like being in the presence of God, being in the pre-existence, and then coming to a point where you couldn't progress anymore. There was a famine. You couldn't progress anymore. You had to go somewhere where you could move on and grow spiritually. And so that's why we've come to earth, or we've come to symbolically to Egypt. So anyway, but that's just my own, that's my own take on it. I'm not saying that that's doctrine, but that's how I always view that. Let's go on. Let's just go on to the pale horse. Okay, fourth seal, about 1000 BC to the birth of Christ. Pale horse, death. Death and hell equals destruction of the wicked and their reception into spirit prison. As recorded in the scriptures, great warring empires characterized this era: Assyria, Egypt, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Having rejected the warnings of the prophets such as Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Amos, the kingdoms of Israel and Judah often found themselves victim of these conquering empires. Israel and Judah also fought against one another. Let's see if it says anything different over here. Elder McConkie suggested that Revelation 6, 7-8 refers to the time of those great kingdoms and nations whose wars and treacheries tormented and overran Israel again and again. These nations include Babylon, Persia, Egypt, Assyria, Greece, and Rome. All right, and that's the last horseman. It's the fourth horseman. Is there anything different over here? No. Okay, and that's in the fourth seal. So these four horsemen, this happens up until the time of Christ, and that's it. It doesn't have to do with the last days. It doesn't have to do with the seventh seal. It doesn't have to do with like was suggested before in one of these other websites. It doesn't have anything to do with the seven angels and the seven trumpets that are bringing down judgments upon the earth or anything like that. Our understanding as Latter-day Saints is that this has to do with the first 4,000 years of the earth's temporal existence, and that is it. Now let's go over here to this article from Gerald N. Lund, called Seeing the Book of Revelation as a Book of Revelation. Now, this is from the December 1987 Ensign. Okay, and there's just one thing I wanted to read from this, and then we're going to wrap this up. And then immediately after, I think I'm going to do a video on this because this seems like a fascinating article. Okay, so, okay, yeah, look at this. So he goes over Section 77 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Question: what are we to understand by the 7 seals with which it is sealed? Answer: we are to understand that the first seal contains the things of the first 1,000 years, and the second also of the second 1,000 years, and so on until the 7th. With this information, we can see how the book is structured and where the primary emphasis lies. For example, if we know the white horse and the man with the bow goes forth to conquer, Revelation 6, 1-2, are part of the first seal, or first 1,000 years, we will not look for some interpretation from our own time. See, isn't that interesting? If we understand the seals, we're not going to be confused about whether this is still yet to take place. We'll understand. Nope, this took place a long time ago. Elder Bruce Armour Conkey suggested that this was a representation of Enoch and the Zion he established. And then, like we talked about, the wars that he won against his enemies. So I'm going to leave it there. Okay, you may consider sharing this with other people that are interested in these type of things. If you know anyone that is talking about the 4 horsemen, but maybe it just doesn't sit right with you, or it kind of contradicts what we just read, maybe share this with them, because they may just not know, right? And I feel like there's a lot that... There's like a lot of confusion. I keep coming across like a lot of confusion among Latter-day Saints that, and I think there's different reasons. I think one reason, maybe there's just not enough time. You know, we all have limited time. Hopefully we're using most of that time on spiritually edifying things, right? Reading the Book of Mormon, reading the things that are going to help us learn the commandments and become a better person. So that should be like the main focus of our lives. And then if we have extra time, then yeah, look into these other things. Try and get a better understanding of the book of Revelation, the signs of the times and stuff like that. But so some people may just not have the time to really go this deep and find this out. Some people may not be aware that we even have an interpretation of this. It may appear that we don't. And so they kind of look around at other Christian churches and it's like, well, they kind of believe the same thing that we do. Let's just see what they think. And then something maybe makes sense to them. And they're like, you know what? Yeah, that sounds right to me. And then they adopt whatever that interpretation is. It could be any number of things. It could be poor study habits, just not thoroughly investigating something, or having priorities not straight. Maybe I don't know. There could be any number of things. But anyway, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts below. Any additional information that you have, any opinions that you have about this. And then, like I said, share it with anyone that's having a hard time understanding the 4 horsemen, the seals, stuff like that. And I'll talk to you guys later.